Wallabies and Wales Autumn Internationals. This game, I think, is kind of an interesting one in terms of both teams have not had the greatest autumn, as you can see by all the L's on the board. Although Australia did have a win over Japan before they got to Europe, and both sides have got pretty hefty injury lists. So it's going to be a nice way for one of them to end the season on a little bit of a high, the international season, and then one of them it's just going to be another loss. So, yeah, it should be a pretty interesting one. We'll go over the squads, the recent results, the predictions and stats, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how this one is going to pan out. In recent times, Wales and Australia matches have tended to be pretty close. I can remember one of these most recent five is that 9-6 game in 2018, which is like the most exciting, boring match I've ever seen. Like, I didn't find it boring at all, despite the fact that it was very low scoring. I seem to remember it was just a glorious match of like Pocock and Tipuric winning turnover after turnover. It was like a defensive masterclass from both sides, so really fun watch. But World Cup was 29-25 to Wales, and those two results kind of broke that long run of Aussie victories. Aussie really had the wood over Wales prior to that. Games prior from 2017, 29-21 to Australia, 32-8 to Australia in 2016, and then all the way back to 2015 in the World Cup, you had that 15-6 win to Australia. So, yeah, although Australia edges the last five, the most recent two are both Welsh wins. Average score across the last five, 21-15 to Australia. That kind of one in 2016 blows the scoreline out just a little bit. In terms of their other results, though, as I mentioned, it's kind of not been the happiest hunting ground, but both sides do have so many injuries. England beat Australia last week. Australia without their two premier tight head props, which was never ideal, 32-15, and then a narrow loss to Scotland, 13-15 at Murrayfield a fortnight ago. For Wales, they lost to New Zealand and South Africa. There's no disgrace in that, being number 1 and 2 in the world. They keep swapping the spots. And then a tough win over Fiji last week. It was pretty comfortable in the end, but the cards in that game kind of marred the result for being just a result that you can revel in, but it was still a good result for Wales nonetheless over the course of the 80, even if they had to work for it in the first 60. This week, Wales have made quite a few changes, and I'm hoping the lineup hasn't changed since I last looked it up, because I remember a couple of the guys were kind of doubtful in the build-up, but we'll see if there's any last-minute changes. The squad they've named, at least that I've seen, is Wyn Jones, Ryan Elias, and Thomas Francis in the front row. I remember Wyn Jones and Thomas Francis didn't play last week, speaking of sides who are without some of their best props. Thomas Francis had kind of concussion issues, I think, so good to see him back. Adam Baird switches locking number, and Seb Davis comes into the second row. He's been riding the pine for the last few games, but good to see him get a start. But I think that's just because Will Rowlands is out, I think, with concussion as well. I know there's a lot of guys out for Wales, so it's kind of just a bit of a patchwork side, but they're having to... It's a good thing for testing depth, right? If nothing else, if you've got to look on the bright side of things, they'll hopefully be a better side for having blooded all these guys in a couple of years' time. Ellis Jenkins has been great since he's come back. He's at 6 and he's captain. Taine Basham's been another bit of a revelation for Wales, despite the results not going their way all the time. He's been really good in every game he's played, and Aaron Wainwright is back. I think it was Wainwright and Francis that were a couple of the doubtful guys, but we'll see. Wainwright, if he's fit, is certainly going to add some value and some dynamism to that back row for Wales. Thomas Williams gets another start. I do like Thomas Williams, but he's been a touch, I want to say, a bit slow at times, just getting to that breakdown, and the odd bit of decision making has kind of lacked a bit of, it's been a bit lacking. But we'll see how he goes against Australia. I still like him as a player, and one swallow doesn't make a summer. So fingers crossed he has a good game. Dan Biggar still there at 10. Halaholo's looked exciting at whenever he's come on. Was he been playing at 12? He's been kind of setting up guys around him, which is good to see. Tompkins is there at 13. Interestingly, there's no spot for Jonathan Davies, who I think is stuck on 99 caps, which is bizarre. Why wouldn't you just get him in? I don't know, but there you go. Nick Tompkins at 13. Rees-Zammit and is on one wing, and Josh Adams on the other. Josh Adams has been out. He was supposed to start at centre for the last game, but he is back for this one, so hopefully he's fit. I think he's another guy who there was a slight question mark about. And Liam Williams there at 15. Liam Williams was phenomenal last week. really good under the high ball as you would expect, and looked very dangerous on attack. So kind of very pleasing to see. Rees-Zammit just scores those like bonkers tries that nobody else can seemingly score. So yeah, when you look fast and you're playing Fiji, that shows you you're pretty quick. The bench D, Tomas and Lewis is the front row replacements. So good to see Elliot D back. Ben Carter's named as well. Tshiunza. Oh man, I forgot how to pronounce his name. I did have the correct pronunciation somewhere, but not on my paper. He got his debut last week, so he's on the bench this week, maybe as a loose forward cover. Davies, Priestland, and McNicholl. That's Gareth Davies. Those are the 3 back replacements. They're all back into the squad after missing out last week. So I think that's pretty solid, man. To have Gareth Davies, Rhys, Priestland, and Johnny McNicholl as your back replacements, I think that's kind of an encouraging sign. So yeah, we'll see how they go. For Australia, they've also had a bit of good news with some guys returning. Slipper's back to his more natural loose head side with the return of Tupou and Halaholo. So they've got those 2 tight heads back who missed the England game just in time for Wales. Wales fans will be glad to know. Tolu Latu also gets a start at 2 after being on the bench last week. Arnold and Rodda's the same lock-in duo who's gone through the last couple of games. So Skelton still rises the pine. Leota, Samu and Valetini are 6, 7 and 8. There's no Hooper this week because he injured himself last week. So Samu's not really a natural 7, but he's versatile, so he can play 7 in a pinch. He's more of an 8, but yeah, like I said, he's pretty versatile. White and O'Connor are 9, 10, and O'Connor's maybe starting to get into his groove right before the season ends. Because remember, he's not played a lot of rugby this season because he sat out the rugby championship for the most part injured. Paisami and Ikitau are the 12-13 combo. Ikitau looks better when he's playing alongside Karevi, but Paisami looked all good last week. So hopefully the 2 can kind of build that relationship between them because they're still kind of a new combo. Daugunu's on the left wing. He's getting his first game, I think, of the tour. Kellaway's on the right wing and Beale is at fullback. Tom Wright drops to the bench. Foketi could get his debut if he comes on as the kind of midfield cover. McDermott is there to cover halfback. I'm not sure who covers. I guess Beale covers 10 if anything happens to O'Connor because they don't have a specialist 10 on the bench. Swinton gets his first game of the tour if he comes off the bench as well. Skelton, Alaalatoa, as I mentioned, is back. Bell and Fainga'a is there as well. So, yeah, it's maybe a stronger Wallaby side than we saw last week, especially with the return of the 2 props. I think is massive because Tupou is literally a massive human, but also a massive contributor to everything the Wallabies do going forward. Stats-wise, between these 2 sides, I think both sides will be pretty frustrated with the amount of penalties they've been conceding. I think the average for Wales in the last 2 or 3 games was like 13. And Australia across their last 2 is 16. Like most sides are like 10, 11. So just creeping up a bit high and quite high for Australia. So that's one area where they definitely want to be kind of cleaning it up because you're just not going to go forward ball if you're getting piggybacked down the field or conceding 3s. Australia struggled in the set piece against England, but as I mentioned, they were without 2 of their props. So maybe that's to be expected. Wales, the last couple of games, their ruck completion rate is a bit low. The percentage is a bit low. Physicality of the box and Fijians was maybe a bit telling. So they'll want to front up in that area, but it is a different side to play the Wallabies. They're not necessarily as big as the South Africans or the Fijians, but that being said, Tupou is a massive, massive unit. So, yeah, we will see how things go. The predictions-wise, the Rugby Forecast algorithm has Wales by 1 point, and the bookies over here in NZ have Wales by 3 points. So Wales go into this one at home as favourites. Can they get a positive record against Australia in their last 5? They may well do if they win this one. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts. If you want British and Irish Lions gear, they're still selling it off. 60% off last time I checked. Good idea for Christmas. Get yourself some winter gear. Link in the description for them. They're an affiliate of the channel, so happy days. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on this one. Australia away, Wales at home. Should be a cracker. I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.